As we start off our class with entry number 1, this is by some margin the greenest gilt in the class, the youngest in age. To take nothing away from her really solid structure that she has ground up, I think that she's a good structured gilt, moves with agility, she's correct in the angles to her skeleton. I just think that her younger age gives us some discrepancy on performance. It makes it harder for her to compete with her contemporaries. The number 2 entry, a gilt that has more rib and center body than the gilt ahead of her. She's one that I want to elevate in her front structure, set her back and her shoulder just to level out her top and give her more integrity to the angle to her hip and hind leg, but a gilt that I think is good in terms of her overall body volume. The 3 entry gilt is going to be our second place gilt in this particular heat, a gilt that comes with a tremendous amount of power as you study her blade back. She's so bold in her rib and bold in her center body. If I were to change her, I'd just like to stouten this gilt up in terms of her feature, in terms of her bone work and her foot at the ground. And when you get in behind her, I think she needs to be powered up there through her hip and stifle to compete with the gilt that's going to get ahead of her in this class. The 4 gilt that follows is the number 4 entry gilt. She is going to be the 3rd place gilt in this particular class. A really nice gilt in terms of design. She's very level in her design. I think she's correct in the angle to her hip and takes a really long stride there. I just like to power her up when you study her up high. I too would like to elevate her front structure and just make her taller at the point of her shoulder. The 5 entry gilt is the winner of this class, and I think by some margin she is the best patterned gilt. So attractive on the side. I really appreciate the angles to her skeleton and how she's set in her blade and knee and hip and hock and pastern. I think that she's so attractive and yet comes with some power, performance, and rib and center that just makes her the right type of gilt regardless of what breed we're discussing. As we work into our second heat of junior gilts, the gilt that's going to win this particular drive is the 6 entry gilt. I think that she's incredibly well-structured and flexible as she gets out on the drive. I appreciate how agile she is in her skeleton, also fairly level in her design. She comes with a really productive rib and center body. If I were to change her, I'd make her more elevated at the point of her shoulder and give her just a touch more power as I study her through her hip. The ultra-attractive gilt is the 7 entry gilt, and she's going to be second in this particular class. This gilt could be stouter in her feature, and I could make her bolder through her rib and center body, but when you study her from a profile standpoint, she's just so very attractive, and that's what keeps her in second. Would just need to be powered up to win this particular class, but I think really needs to be appreciated there. The 8 entry gilt is going to be 3rd in this class. She's the really big topped, bold, soft centered female. I think that I'd like to clean her up in her condition to get her to compete with 1 and 2 in this particular class. But when you study her just in terms of performance and production, I think that you can really appreciate the maternal center body that she does have. The 9 entry gilt is probably a more moderate gilt. She's shorter coupled and shorter in her body. I want to fix her from her structure. She rocks too far forward in her blade for me and wants to tuck her hip up underneath her as she gets out and goes. Just need to reassemble her in terms of the angles of her skeleton. The 10 gilt in this class is another gilt that's really bold in terms of her center body. Again, a younger gilt that just is lower performing comparative to those that we've seen before. I'd like to elevate her and make her just a touch more attractive, extend her in front of her blade, clean up her condition relative to the frame size that she is, but a gilt that I still think offers a lot of positives in terms of her maternal center. As we evaluate the champion drive of our junior gilts, it's the 5 entry gilt that's going to be our champion. This is one that I think really patterns up nice, especially in comparison to many of the gilts that I've viewed today. I think she's got a great future ahead of her. So good in terms of her angles, gives you that awesome look and design, and still comes with a productive center and a good muscle shape. A big congratulations to our junior gilt champion. The 6 entry gilt is going to be our reserve. Compared to our champion, she's just not quite as stout in terms of her bone work and feature. She's carrying more condition, but I still think that she's got a really good look and design. She reads broody like a good brood sow should, and I think she'll have a lot of future to her. Congratulations to our reserve champion. And finally, the 7 entry Gilt is going to be our 3rd overall in the junior Gilt. I really admire this Gilt for the look and pattern that she has. I talked about her in class that I could fix her inner blade, set her back there and elevate her just a touch more, just so she really is that really high quality look and design. And the big thing with her is that she just needs more power and muscle to compete with those Gilts ahead of her, but one that I think can really inject some good pattern to her offspring. Congratulations to all of our junior Gilt exhibitors.